Hi again, and now we'll be going through the example of a turn. And basically there are going to be three steps: the supply phase, the move attack phase, and the build queue phase. So first step is to supply any units on the battlefield, if possible. So we'll be talking about the supply phase.
Now remember, when your cards come in, they're going to be coming in spent. So you'll have to supply them before they shoot.
Okay.
And the way to do that is one of three ways. You can use the supply turn card ability. Just so you know, TCA is turn card ability. That's when you actually turn the card.
Okay.
Right? And that is only on supply units. That's the dark green units. The borders are dark green.
Okay.
And you'll see on the card, it'll say TCA supply. So out of all of the different supply steps, you would use those supply units first.
Gotcha.
If you don't have any of those, then you can use cards that have self-supply.
Self-supply.
And that'll be dictated right on the card. It'll have a card trait called self-supply, can resupply itself. And there's also an indicator in the upper right part of the card. You'll see these chevrons that indicate that you can self-supply.
Self-supply means they don't have to be on the HQ row to be able to supply?
Or use a supply unit.
Okay,
correct.
That's good. And then the next step is the HQ squares.
And all of your cards in your 4 battlefield HQ squares can be resupplied every turn.
So if you're spent and there's no one to supply you and you can't self-supply, you basically just have to move back to the HQ to resupply?
Correct.
Okay,
very good.
Gotcha. All right, so here we are. And that
was our BQ HQ that came straight out from our BQ flip step.
So basically this guy is spent at this point?
Yep.
All right, and so now he's supplied.
And now he's ready to go. He's ready to shoot.
Gotcha.
And when he shoots, he'll then go sideways again.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the move attack phase.
Yep.
And basically, with all your units on the battlefield, move attack, see reference 8. So,
and all of your units can move and attack each turn. It's not just one unit. All of your units can move and attack, or attack and move.
Okay.
Per turn.
Oh, so they can attack and move, or move and attack, and now we're talking about the movement.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see here. So on the card, it tells you how far they can move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
obviously, if it says 1, you can move 1 square. If it says 2, you can move 2 squares, and literally just count out the squares. We try to make that as simple as possible.
Gotcha. And okay, so here we are. Units may move to as many squares as this movement value for each turn. Each unit cannot move, perform an action, then move with remaining movement. So if you have 2, you can't go 1, attack 1, or something like that?
Exactly. The best way that we can explain that is no stops and starts.
Okay.
You can't start moving, do some sort of action, whether it's to supply something, to attack something, to pick up and transport an infantry, and then continue with your remaining movement value.
Gotcha. Okay. And movement is orthogonal, left, right, up, down, not diagonal. Okay.
Therefore, a unit would need a movement value of 2 or more to move diagonally. So again, just count out the squares. If you want to go diagonally, you'd have to go 1, 2. This is a movement of 1, so it can go up, down, left, right, 1. But to go diagonally, you would actually need 2.
So if you have a movement of 1,
right.
you couldn't move there.
Correct.
Okay. And ground units cannot move through a square occupied by opposing ground units. They can block each other. Air units such as helicopter pass over and don't block any units. All right, so here we are. And so this guy's moving up 1.
Yeah, 6 more turns to win.
There you go. He's almost there. And so now we're talking about attacking. And attacking requires that a unit have an attack TCA listed on their card.
What does TCA mean?
Turn card abilities.
Correct.
And attacking causes a unit to become spent and must be used on a player's turn unless stated on card. There are 4 basic steps to follow during combat.
The range of attack is how far it can attack in terms of squares. Now we have a couple of conventions in this game. One is a little r, one is a little e, and one is a big R.
Okay.
And as you can see, there's reminder text on the bottom of the card in italics, and range 1r means within 1 square radius, which also includes the current square.
Gotcha. So here he is. This is his range of attack that we have here.
And it's also the current square.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha.
There could have been a blue square in the middle there.
Okay. Gotcha. So he can attack himself if he wants to.
No. He can move up and attack the same square.
Oh, okay. I get it. All right. So build units in your BQ to get more cards into play.
So now we're going into our BQ phase.
All right. So this is a new turn, and now we're getting more cards out into the game.
Exactly. And before we do the flip, we first must shift, and that's the 6.1 BQ shift.
Okay. So Para has a new way to bring cards into play that most card games, and your choice is managing your BQ and revealing cards can greatly influence your strategy and chances of winning. There are 3 steps to your BQ phase. So shift, cancel, and flip.
Yes. At the shift, you move your cards closer and into play. Cancel and reassign is removing cards from your BQ. We wanted to give the opponents the chance. If something isn't working out or you don't have the right cards,
If you don't like that card, you get rid of it.
you could.
Okay.
You could. You may regret it later, but if you needed to, we wanted to give the players the option to. And then, as we discussed earlier, the 6.3 is the flip, and that's when you build more units.
Okay, gotcha. So start with BQ 1 square. If there's a face-up card with a green BQ box on top of the pile, move it to any of your 4 HQ squares on the battlefield. Moving a card from the BQ into play in an HQ is to deploy the card. Units can be deployed into an HQ square that already has units in it, as long as this doesn't violate game rule 3.5, 5-card max.
Okay, really simply, that is when you have a card going in to the battlefield, you can choose any 4 HQ squares, like we talked about before.
Okay.
However, there's a maximum of 3 ground units and 2 air units in any one square.
Okay.
So if you already had 3 ground units, you wouldn't be able to put it into that HQ square, because that would have been the 4th
Gotcha.
unit. So you'd have to have a different HQ square to deploy it in. And also, when you deploy it, again, that's when they're spent. When it's deployed, it's when they're spent and sideways.
Gotcha. Okay, so here we go. This guy's moving out into the HQ, and this guy's moving down.
That is the BQ shift.
BQ shift.
So BQ1 went into HQ.
Right.
If there were a BQ2, it would go to 1. If there's a 3, it would have gone to 2. But we didn't have those cards, so we go up to the BQ4, and only the top card of any BQ pile would move down. So in this case, the Apache, which was in BQ4, goes from 4 to 3.
Gotcha.
Not both of them.
So only the cards that have already been turned up are the ones that are moving down right now.
That is
and
correct.
that has to happen first.
And of those, only the top one.
Gotcha. All right. So only the top card moves.
Very important.
Can't emphasize that enough. And that is the end of the BQ shift.
It is.
So this is an example of using movement and attack. So here we are. We have the enemy cards on top, and our cards are here on the bottom.
Yes, and this is obviously a separate turn, a separate scenario.
This is just an example.
Yes.
And so in this example, player 1 wants to destroy player 2's tank. So step 1 of this would be to supply. So we're going to supply the helicopter here.
Because it's in the HQ.
Okay. And now we're going to move and attack.
And again, every unit can move and attack, or attack and move.
Gotcha. So this guy's got a movement of 1.
It's a 1R. Remember, the convention of the little R is radius.
Okay.
And this is a very, very special card. The fact that it can move diagonally,
So,
remember, usually it would take 2.
So usually you cannot move diagonally, but if it has an R, then
yes,
you
1R. Force Recon, very cool card.
Very cool.
And it can self-supply, as you can see.
can. Wow, those guys are very cool.
Yes, one of the best infantry cards.
All right, so that is going to be his movement range.
Exactly.
And here he is. He's going to move over into the enemy territory.
Absolutely.
And next we have the Caius.
Caius.
Sorry. And he's got a range of 2.
Helicopters move a little faster, and over ground troops, remember.
Gotcha. So this is his movement range.
Very good.
And he's going to move over into the enemy territory as well.
Sure. And they could be attacking right now, but we're going to save the
We're
whole
just setting up all the movement
exactly.
first and then the attacking, but you can just move attack each
individually if you wanted to.
Yeah. And so this guy's range is 1. So he's moving over and he's getting in within attacking range now. And now we're going to get to the attack phase. So again, they could have done this earlier, but we're just kind of separating them now. And so this is the tank, and he's got a defense of 3. And the Force Recon has an attack of 1.
Absolutely, and notice that the range is 0, so it needs to be in the current square, which it is, and also that it can damage the tanks.
So talk to me about that. So I see these little, this says can damage at the bottom of the card, and there's little illustrations of what he can damage, right?
Absolutely. We call it the valid icon bar. So the valid targets that it could attack would be the infantry, supply units, defense units, tank units, and artillery units. As you can see, you don't see the helicopter because the Force Recon can't attack the helicopters unless the helicopter was very lazy and staying in the same place in the air.
It makes sense to me.
Right.
All right, so there he is. He's turning around, and now that he's attacking the tank here.
Yes, turn card ability, and that would be 1 damage to the tank.
Okay. So now the tank only has 2 defense left after that attack.
That's correct.
So another attack of 1.
Again, range of 0 needs to be in the same square. That's why we moved them there.
Gotcha.
And we also checked to make sure it can damage helicopters. Notice that helicopter could damage other helicopters.
Nice.
That was in the valid target icon bar.
Very cool. Okay, so he is attacking the tank as well.
Yes, and you have to assign it, because you do get to choose as the attacker what you attack.
And now the tank is down to 1. And the reason that the cards turn during attack is so that you know that they've been spent for that turn, right?
Yes, and they need to be resupplied before
Gotcha.
they can attack again.
Okay. And lastly, we have this last attack here, and it's got a range of 1.
Yes, but it's a 1E. Again, the other convention, besides the little r, which denotes radius, E means exactly. And as the reminder text says on the bottom, ranges with an E mean exactly, E for exactly, and doesn't include closer squares. So this couldn't attack
his own square.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Think of it, that the mortars are going up in the air.
You need to lob them over.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, and again, he can attack tanks, so he's all good.
Yep.
And he's going to go ahead and attack the tank. The tank is now destroyed. And that is the sound of the tank expiring.
Expiring, that's right.
Okay, so there you have it.
This brings up a very, very big component of the game.
Okay.
A lot of people are asking, what is the synergistic effect of stacking cards?
Mm-hmm.
And we put that into the game as defender wins the square.
Okay.
So when we started this step, we had the tank and the opposing mortars in the same square, and then it became our turn. So they held that ground. They were waiting upon the attack. They have the advantage.
They're the defender.
Right. We chose to attack them, so they have the advantage. And if we don't clear out that square, any of our attacking units that are in that square are lost. They lost the fight. Within the crossfire, the tank's fighting back, the mortars are fighting back, and because of that, we're going to lose our attacking cards because they didn't have range. The mortars are safe.
Right. So now because we're stuck left in that square, and there's still a defender left.
Right.
Those units get destroyed. So here we are. This is basically explaining that concept. Defender wins the square, and because they're left at the end of their turn, they die.
Yes. Removed from the game.
Removed from the game. And that is the end of that particular example.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be back.